Welcome back to the show. Today we've got a special guest interview. I'm talking with Justin Aldridge about faith and sports, his personal testimony, and so excited to speak about those things with you, brother. Thanks for joining me for this conversation.
Yeah, happy to be here. Always.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome. Now, I'm excited to talk to you. And, first, it's probably good that our audience gets to know you a little bit. So maybe just take a little bit of time and share with us just your personal background and how you got where you are today, and sports career and those type of things. Before we jump into some questions here.
Of course, grew up in New Orleans. I grew up in the church. My granddad was our minister of education, where I learned how to play baseball. As we had a fellowship hall, and it rains all the time in New Orleans, and so I would do baseball lessons in our fellowship hall, which was probably a privilege afforded to me because I had the keys
Sure.
that most kids don't get to do. Grew up in the church, moved here to Orlando in high school to play baseball. Played here, went to college, went to Delgado Community College, where I think we topped out at 7th in the country.
Okay.
One game away from the World Series.
Yeah. And
then University of Nevada, Las Vegas, played there for a year. Most of my college career was spent hurt. And so that's kind of how that happens. Wound up playing independent professional baseball, like unaffiliated, for a couple years, and then got picked up very briefly by the Blue Jays before I got hurt again. So stayed in Winter Garden here in West Orlando, played off and on for a little bit, and eventually wound up getting into coaching. After that kind of ran its course, I was the chaplain for the Marlins AAA team back in New Orleans. And then I fought wildfires in Northern California, became an actor at Disney World, which I still do. Went to work, finally came back into the ministry. We'll get into that later. But now I'm working as a church planner for the North American Mission Board as of 2 months ago. So it's pretty new.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I was joking with my wife before this conversation. I was like, it's too good to but it sounds almost made up, right? The your kind of background of all these different all these different things.
It was a wild journey.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Love to see how the Lord works in other people's lives, and maybe, but that's a good place for us to go next. Maybe share your personal testimony. You mentioned growing up in the church, but how did you come to faith in Christ, and then how did that journey begin to intersect with sports and those type of things?
I mean, I would say Jesus and baseball, and I played other sports too. I played football. In fact, I played everything I could when I was growing up, but they've always been intertwined for me. And not just because I, played catch in a fellowship hall.
Yeah.
So I grew up in the church. Dad taught Sunday school. My grandmother was a sign language interpreter. Mom was a preschool director. In fact, they lived in the parsonage across the street from the church. So after school, we would go. So when I say I grew up in the church, I was at the church 6 out of 7 days of the week.
Yeah.
Got saved real young. In fact, I was 5 years old. And when I talk about that journey, I remember the day that it happened. I remember walking through the pinwheel. For me, it was very much this thing of seeing my parents, seeing my grandparents, seeing the friends that we were around, and there was something different about them, understanding that there was something inside of me that needed to be cured and that I could not cure it on my own, and turning to Jesus for that. At the same time, it was not a very deep faith, but it was real. In fact, I've always said that I wish my faith was that real now. Because there was zero doubt in my little 5-year-old brain that I was saved by the grace of God, even if I didn't quite understand how all that worked. As I got older, my dream in life, I have a paper that my mom has kept precious, is that I wrote a paper that said, when I grow up, I want to be a baseball missionary. I'd play baseball from March to October, and then I'd go wherever and be a missionary for the rest of the year. And that was this very pie-in-the-sky dream of mine.
Mm-hmm.
As time went on, I moved here to play baseball. And then it becomes much more serious. Not just that, but it becomes a whole lot more of a expected reality, as you are when you're a 16-year-old who's being told by everyone around them that they're the best thing in the world. You start to believe it. And didn't lose my faith, but it certainly became a much less significant part of me. It became something else that I was. And so going into my senior year of high school, we're looking at being drafted high. And so when my ankle snapped And in fact, I kept playing after almost every ligament in my ankle, every functional ligament in my ankle, and was able to keep it a secret. I'd go get my ankle kind of strapped together by 15 pounds of tape, and I'd go play. And I was hitting something like 560, 570 in what is still one of the best kind of areas for high school baseball in the country before, they're going to find out. And they found out. So I went and got that fixed up. And when that happened, everything just kind of came crashing down. Because everything that I had decided that I was going to be, everything I thought that God had created me to be, I'm now having to rethink all of that. Because if you think this is what God gave you and it's taken away from you, then obviously it's not what God gave you. That's what you've put onto him. And so what else have you gotten wrong? And that led me on a journey that lasted for longer than I wish it had to have. And so, you work through it. And from a physical standpoint, it led me on a journey where I couldn't stay healthy. Like once that happened, ankle surgery led to a knee surgery led to another ankle surgery, which led to another knee surgery, back and forth and back and forth, along with torn labrum and a random thumb thing along the way.
Yeah.
But as I got older and as even my baseball career progressed and I was playing signed with the Laredo Broncos United Baseball League, which is now defunct. I think it got absorbed by the American Association or something like that. I realized that this dream of mine that I had for myself wasn't this glamorous thing. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And I turned to the idea of immeasurably more, Ephesians 3:20. And then that this thing that I had in my head that from a worldly perspective, from a more youthful me perspective, it wasn't what I wanted or wasn't what I thought that I would, should have and deserved and earned, but there was so much more for me. And the Lord did something incredible for me that made me realize that what he had for me was better. Still got to play, still got to do those things, but it became secondary, if not, less than that to kind of serving him. And that's when I surrendered the call to the ministry, said, all right, where do you want me to go? What do you want me to do? Wound up going to seminary first at New Orleans. That's where I became the chaplain for the New Orleans Zephyrs, the Marlins AAA team. Actually got signed to play. That's when I got signed by the Blue Jays as while I was the chaplain of the Zephyrs, which is it's a unique.
That's awesome.
Say that one. Which again ended in me getting hurt, which is kind of how that seemed to go. After a while, you're like, all right, I get the picture. I'm going to stop trying to do this. But for me, baseball did lead into, especially my early ministry, because my mom would go to every game. I was playing in Macon, Georgia, and I was playing third base. And at every game, there's a youth group or there's something, and she would just kind of mosey on over and go, hey, the third baseman's available to come speak and preach or whatever you need. And next thing I knew, I was booked up for the next 6-7 months across the Southeast. All because my mom was...
Yeah. That's great. Yeah.
So for me, I spent a long time living with regret about how baseball went and these questions of what could have been and what should have been and why wasn't it.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, now as I look back on it, I realize that so much of that was kind of forging me to be who I needed to be now at 38. And you don't trade those things. You don't. Even if you could, you wouldn't give them away.
Yeah. And it is really difficult especially when you're dealing with just like a passion, right? You could say even like a God-given passion for sports, but to also see him sovereignly allowing certain things to happen and just what you're supposed to take away from that. What's he trying to, teach me and push me toward?
It wasn't like it was something that it wasn't like it was bad. Because in my head, this is a beautiful platform.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've put me here, you've given me this gift so that I might use it to glorify you and make your name famous. And I'm going to use that. It's altruistic. It's good. Of course, it makes sense.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't this happen? So,
Yeah, absolutely. If you could look back, talk to yourself, today and look at a younger you. In what maybe a couple specific ways do you think, or do you wish faith would have shaped better how you approached, say, competition or preparation for competition and performance in general?
From a purely practical standpoint, a baseball standpoint, I wish that I wish I could say don't rely so much on pure talent and do a little more of the dirty work and listen to more people. There were people that I trusted that I needed more voices. Like I needed more, and some of them are going to be terrible voices. And you go, well, that was pointless, and I shouldn't have ever heard of that at all.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
for every one of those, you're going to get two that really some kind of wisdom is there. So I would tell
Mhm.
myself, do more dirty work as far as on the nitty gritty of just making yourself into who you need to be. Listen to more people. Don't think you've figured it all out.
Yeah.
You know, especially from a baseball standpoint, like hey, there's people that have done this longer than you have, and they know what they're doing. But from a faith standpoint, I think one of the biggest things that happened, especially after the first ankle injury, was a complete just got my confidence robbed from me. Baseball wise for a while, especially, but even just life and everything was spent, or the next, it was spent second guessing. Like, well, am I supposed to do? Is this what am I where I'm supposed to be? And if you're asking yourself those questions, you're never going to get an answer. Instead of going to the Lord and saying, "Well, where would you have me?" And walking in that and saying, "All right, this is where you've put me. Then this is where my feet are. This is where I'm going to stand."
Yeah, well, I was curious not everybody's gonna go most people don't, right, play professional sports even at a collegiate level, right? But there's still things, whether it's tied to worth, tying it to stats, contracts, wins, salary. But if you bring it down to, high school level, is there social media following? Is
Yeah,
it
man.
all state, all district, whatever? Am I getting these highlight reel type of plays? Who's looking at me? What offers am I getting?
Yeah,
How or not, right? And you think you should be.
yeah.
Uh, how did you learn to anchor your identity in Christ rather than in performance on the field, or in what ways did you find helpful, or maybe that you feel like you could have done better? You would like to say to a young athlete about putting their identity in Christ and not in their particular sport.
Was Proverbs 27:21 that says that the true test of a man is when they're praised or when they're successful. Because we talk all the time about, you find out who you are when things get tough and those things.
Hmm.
And that is true. You're going to wind up, you're being kind of refined by that fire. But at the same time, too, when things are going incredibly well, the adage is there's no atheist in foxholes, kind of the same thing. There's also when things going well, it's very easy to be like, yep, I'm pretty great.
Yeah,
And it's very easy to fall into that trap of just being like, you know what? Yeah, I like this. And then that next thing you know, your identity is in that success. And what you learn very quickly is that success is very fickle, that you might be doing really well right now, but game's going to catch up with you.
yeah,
So I think for me, it's this thing of the football thing, no, nothing too high, nothing too low, just staying right there in the middle. And that allows you to look at things no matter what it is and see it for what it is. Every good and perfect gift is from above, whether that's things that you never want to go through again or things that you can't wait to do again. They're all gifts from God, and treat them as such and try and figure out why they've been given to you. Same thing, it's, you don't fail, you learn, which is easy to say.
yeah,
It's really easy to say. It's
yeah,
much harder to actually implement and put into practice. But if I can anchor myself in the fact that I am saved by grace, created by Him for a purpose that is His alone, it makes the highs and the lows so much easier to navigate and to bear. Because there's a responsibility to success. There's a weight to it where you have to keep, you got to keep doing it,
yeah,
and that burden becomes pretty heavy too.
mm,
So
yeah,
I guess that's what I would say.
yeah,
If I can find a way to make that my identity. And then see also too is the idea of if that's my identity, then victory is mine no matter what happens.
yeah.
Because
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. And so maybe, because you've been a coach before in the past, and so how would you like help a player who's struggling with this, because you want them to know that, yeah, I want you to do all things right with excellence, right? We want all things that we do to bring glory to God. You can love your sport, right? You can love being
you
good at it.
should.
You can.
Again, this is a
celebrate.
gift you've
Yeah.
been given. Treat it as a gift. Love the
Yeah.
gift.
And it's like,
Because
you
if
know,
you love the gift, you're loving the giver.
I mean, you should love that, like, the Lord made you to run or
Yeah, of
hit things, right? Or be able to throw a ball really fast or be able to jump
course.
really high, right? But I think there's a difference though between loving the sport, seeing it as a gift from the Lord, a way to bring him glory, and also finding identity in it, right? And so I think one struggle that, like, we just mentioned that players have, but there's also a struggle for coaches to, you know, they want to win. Sometimes their livelihood depends on that, right? But
Yep.
they
Amen.
obviously want to also be about character formation and development, and to help, especially Christian coaches, right? Help their players find and place their identity in Christ, because they're actually going to become better players, better human beings, those who are equipped to actually go be a good father and to be a good husband, to be a good member of their local church. You know, hopefully we've shared the gospel with them, and they accept Christ, right? And that becomes part of their life. And so what would you say to coaches who are wanting to instill that in their players? How could we help them out here?
I think for me, the one thing that I kind of got impressed by, especially towards the end, is that you don't want to. We use pride as this kind of, seven deadly sin. It's awful. At the same time, false humility is a different form of pride. And so, if you have a player who's going to go seventh overall in the draft, I'm like I did when I was coaching high school ball here. It's okay for you to acknowledge that you are better at this than probably, all but 12 people in the entire world. If you don't acknowledge that, and at the same time too, let's acknowledge the things that we are good at. Let's acknowledge that the ways in which God has blessed us and given us these talents that we are meant to use. And by acknowledging those things, now we have empowered ourselves to use them in a way that we wouldn't otherwise. As a coach, if I can identify what every single one of my players is best at, what they are uniquely gifted at, well, now they understand their place, their role in the team, and they can use it in a way that they couldn't otherwise. If they're searching for that the entire season and they never find it, well, then why were they on the team in the first place?
Yeah,
Even the most team game is still an individual sport in so many different ways, that we need to find ways to make these individuals feel like a part of a collective whole, but also feel special and unique and valued as that individual that they are.
yeah,
And so I would say, if I can make you feel important, not just important to the team, but also important to me as a coach, that I like you. I'm very much glad you're on my team. I'm glad I get to be your coach. I feel, um, fortunate or blessed to have you on this team personally. Now you're going to be more willing to do the things that I ask you to do, and to give me the effort that it requires. So, and it's not faking that either. It's the same, not that whole of like, man, you're a great encourager. I love the way you clap over there on the end of the bench. No, there are things. Everyone has something they can do, and let's find those. Let's discover them. Let's look for them. Let's search for them earnestly and diligently. And in so doing, then we also allow ourselves a different conversation about, but do you know why you're so good at this? It's because you were created by a sovereign God to have those things inside of you, who you are. That's in your
yeah.
DNA. So,
Mm. Yeah, I think that's really, really good. And also just, thinking it can be difficult to, I think, for coaches sometimes to spend more effort, more attention on players, right? Who are they're the ones producing on the field, and whether
mhm.
that's selfish thing of like, man, I'm riding this group of guys or this particular player because
we had
they're making me look good, right? Or
we were the number one high school team in the country. We had three players that went. One went, I think it was seventh or eighth overall to the Twins. One went in the sandwich round, like 54th, and one
mm,
went in the second round, all in the
mm,
same year. I didn't need to be there. We were going to win without us. There could be no coach, and we were going to be just fine.
yeah,
But just from a talent perspective,
yeah,
and we also had a junior the next year who went in the third round. So it was,
yeah, wild,
you were just loaded
yeah,
with talent, and it was so easy. And I was a assistant coach for that one, and it was so easy to look back and watch and like, he needs to practice, but there's not a whole lot of practice we can give him inside of a team. That's not going to
yeah,
do him a whole lot of good. And yet that was all we did, was spend time going, man, look what he can do. Yeah, but let's. And then that's why we wound up losing second round of the playoffs, is we got bunted to death and
hmm
we did not handle it. We lost what, 3-2, and all 3 runs were on bunts and weird running
Mm,
base running mistakes.
yeah. Yeah, well, and it's kind of one of those things where it's like you can put all your attention, there, still have those type of outcomes, right? And you can also neglect, are you giving the type of, attention to the worst player on your
'Cause
team?
that's the other side of it too, where it's like, "Look here, you can spend the next lifetime with this kid. It's not gonna matter. Like, look
Yeah,
here, you just have fun this year and enjoy yourself, and it's gonna be just fine."
yeah, and
And that's
there's
okay too.
yeah, and there's a certain sense in which that's where kind of sports again is going to like transcend, kind of a worldly
Yeah.
view of, sports entertainment. They would say like, well, that person's of no value. It doesn't matter if they're here. And I want to say like, man, I want them here because I want them around
Yeah.
these guys. I want them to be part of a team. I want them to learn discipline. I want them to learn resilience. I want them to learn how to fight through adversity, whether that's like an
And also
injury or.
finding, because there's still a way to put him in a position where he's successful.
Mhm,
We might need to have a slightly different definition of what successful is. You may not hit may not hit home runs. You may not, hit 400. You might whatever, but you're going to be successful, and we're going to
mhm.
find a way to make you successful. And then the other players on the team also see him be successful, and they kind of rally around that, and it's infectious.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And maybe another question, for you here too. We talked about instilling the identity in Christ, right? For especially their players that they know are, Christian. Now, not every athlete they're going to serve as is a Christian, but just thinking, how also would you help coaches in, let's say like a secular environment? There, most coaches are in the public school
Yeah,
setting,
I was.
right? And how can they still have a gospel centered coaching philosophy and have that trickle down into the way that they've run their program, the way that they speak to their players, the way they come up with, their kind of pillars of, program and things like the stuff they put in the weight room on the sign. Some places you can be more explicit than others, but
Mhm.
what encouragement or help would you offer, coaches thinking, through that? I want this to permeate through my entire program. May not be able to be as explicit as I want to, but even with players that aren't believers yet, I still want them to know that I'm a Christian and they see these values coming out in everything that I do program wise.
I think the first thing that I'd tell as many people as I can is you have no idea what these kids are going home to. None. They could be going home to absolutely terrible home situations. And this is their one escape. This is their one respite from whatever it is they're going through. It is our responsibility to make sure that we are a not just a safe space, 'cause it's easy to be a safe space, but a space that is uplifting and encouraging and allows them to grow. And so that means sometimes giving some grace where you don't always want to,
Yeah.
and having a little patience when that's not the easiest thing to do. But beyond that and inside of that, I think it's making sure that every player knows that you love them and you like them, and that means choosing to like them, because a lot of times
Mhm.
that is not the easiest thing to do. Like, it's easy to love people a lot of times. It's not easy to like them, but it is making sure they understand that you love them, which means that sometimes you do get on them and you do exercise discipline, but it
Mhm.
means you don't exercise discipline in pure anger. Everybody has that story of, the pitchers, we walk 9 guys in a game, and so the whole team runs laps for 30 minutes, and the left fielder's going, "Well, what did I do?" Well, explain that. Talk about it. Why are we doing this? That's what you choose to do. Um, it's it's allowing them to hold you accountable, which is a slippery slope to find, but it means that you have something of an open door policy where it's like, "Hey, why do we do this?" And you can answer that question, and they feel comfortable asking you questions. It's not just because I said so. It's not that kind of old school, which I'm plenty old school, but in that aspect, I want to be able to explain, hey, here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing it, here's the purpose, and here's the goal. Here's what we're trying to get to.
Yeah.
If you can kind of, to use a new school term, if you can cast that vision and they can understand it and see it, then they're going to buy in. And next thing you know, you have uh, disciples, for lack of a better way to phrase it.
Yeah.
And when you have disciples in baseball, well, now you can make disciples, or football, or whatever. You can make disciples for Jesus. And if they know you love them,
Yeah.
truly, genuinely, not, I don't love you because I have to love you. I love you
Mhm.
because of who you are.
Mhm.
they're going to come to you with all kinds of things that you probably couldn't have imagined in the first place. And now you have the opportunity to speak into their lives and into their hearts in ways that are life changing, eternity changing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I've been in pastoral ministry. I've coached high school football, high school track. Was terrible at baseball, by the way. Football was my thing. There's so much overlap that I found as a pastor, with coaching, right? I come from a coaching
100%.
family. My
Yeah.
dad coached for 30 years before he passed away. My brother is a high school football coach here in the DFW area. Just the sheer amount, like you said something that made me think of this, of like, just, you have no idea the types of things the kids bring to you that you have to deal with and walk through. And so a lot of times you're getting the call that, like, the EMS person gets. You're getting the call that the pastor, typically gets. You're probably the first or second call a lot of the time. And so just curious, what are some of the things that maybe surprised you, as a coach or even as a player, with some of your teammates bringing things to you that you're like, man, I really wish that I would have known how to handle, this better, or like knew where to grab some resources. Cause that's something that I feel like a lot of coaches are like, man, I got the X's and O's down. I'm comfortable with that, but and it's like, man, I wish I could just coach football, but like I can't. That's not just the whatever it is. Um, but just the reality that, I mean, you're like a guidance counselor for you.
And sometimes you're a full blown surrogate father.
Yeah, yeah.
That's just whether you want to be or not, that's just what you are.
Hmm.
And sometimes you may not even realize that until much, much later. Like one of the kids that played for me is from one of the wealthiest families in America. Here in Windermere, Florida. That's kind of what you got. Kid, we had to make him take his Rolex off for practice. You know,
Just common problem.
yeah. I think it was halfway through the year. His sister overdosed. His older sister overdosed, died. And then he came in and we talked. And next thing I know, I was hearing things where you're like, brother, you're a legitimate billionaire. I don't understand why,
Yeah.
as far as surprises go, I think the first thing that pops into my head is that it was my second year of pro ball. We had a faith night, like a faith and family night, something like that. Had a
Hmm.
promotion, I don't like baseball and their promotions. And before it was late in the season, unfortunately, because before the game, they came in and said, "Hey, would anybody mind praying before the game because it's faith night?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll do that."
Hmm.
So before the game, when we're lined up for the anthem, and they said, I caught the first pitch, and then I turned around and prayed. And the next day, we come in. It was, I don't know, and one of the guys goes, "Man, that was really cool." It's like, what's that? Like, I don't think I could do that. Like, I want to, but I don't think I could do that.
Hmm.
And next thing I know, we had a full blown prayer meeting going before every single game.
Hmm.
At And if I had known that was something that was even an option, I would have thrown that out right away because that sounds like
Yeah.
fun to me. Cool.
Yeah.
So 9 times out of 10, boldness is rewarded. You're going to figure out or realize that thing you thought was so scary actually was the most natural thing of all, more often than you probably think it would be. Other than that, I think the biggest thing, especially when I first started coaching, I was like 23. In fact, I was still playing. So that was the agreement was I could work out at their facility as long as I coached the middle school team.
Yeah.
And so I'm a kid. And the surprising thing to me was how much these kids looked up to me. And it was something that I took very seriously because, like, oh, okay. And then next thing I knew, I'm looking up things that pregame speeches and,
Hmm.
which I probably spent a little too much time on.
Sure.
And I think too, the other biggest thing is that you do get so caught up in the X's and O's. You get so caught up in the wins and losses. From baseball, we're going to work on double cuts and wheel plays on bunts and
Hmm.
pickoff plays. Or if it's football, we're working on any number of playbook
Hmm.
stuff and schemes. And nobody remembers that even 6 months after the season's over. What they remember is the way that you talk to them after they tore their ACL, after they missed the kick that lost the game, after they struck out, whatever. They remember those things and how you treated them, how you talked to them, how you lifted them up, or how you did not. I'm still in contact with my junior college coach, best coach I ever played for. Baseball wise, absolute, just brilliant baseball coach. But more than that, a leader of men in a way that is incredibly rare. And being able to look at him and say, the way he coached us is the way I want to parent my children. That's a pretty incredible thing to be able to say about somebody.
Yeah.
And that should be what we aspire to. That they can look at us as coaches and go, you know what? I want to live my life like he coached me and make other people feel like he made me feel.
Yeah. Yeah,
If you
absolutely. I
can do
know.
that, you're going to get past a whole lot of losses. That
Yeah.
school is going to overlook a whole lot of stuff if they're like, no, this is the greatest.
Hmm.
It's the greatest guy on our campus.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. Well, and
but
I
it's
know,
still fun to win.
yeah, absolutely. My brother says sometimes, he's like, I don't know how good of a coach you are if you aren't getting invited to a lot of weddings, if you're not getting invited to a lot of funerals. And it's one of those things where it's like, do you make a big enough impact that it's not just somebody I'm running through a program, but the kids feel such a connection that it's like, maybe you text them, call them like here and there. Maybe they know you're there, they're available. But what about that kid that 5 years from now, you made such an impact that you haven't heard from him, but here's this wedding invitation. You're
Yeah.
definitely not missing it. Right. And you can pick up like right where you left off. And
Yeah.
that's a rare thing that I think sports and faith in a unique way connect us, to each other
Yeah.
that way. The amount of time that you're spending together, the dedication toward task and mission and goal and same vision, I think really ties people's souls together in a
Yeah.
very
And I think
unique
sports
way.
takes faith naturally. Like
Hmm.
I have faith. I am putting my trust in you as a teammate, as a coach, and also in my own self that we are, this collective mission. The two mirror each other pretty, pretty perfectly. Yeah. You know, sports is a metaphor to life, but sports is a metaphor to almost everything.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing, I'd want to encourage coaches to, and I'll ask you about this as well, but just being connected to a local church. There's going to be things that kids bring to you like, man, I have no idea like how to handle that. And just having like the humility to
Yeah.
be able to say, but I probably know somebody that can, or like, I'm willing to help you through this, but like, I need to get some help myself working through whatever, this is. It could be someone that's, dealing with some type of abuse or a pornography addiction. I mean, it could be a number of things, drugs, alcohol, whatever, whatever that is. They could be caught up in, I mean, today, even some type of online gamble. I mean, just there's all kinds of things people could get tied up in, right?
It's a
You
whole
know,
blown pandemic that's coming if
yeah.
it's not already here.
And it's one of those things where it's like, hey, you also don't feel like you have to shoulder all of this alone. But just
And
it's
you need to
important.
feel comfortable being able to say, I don't know.
Hmm.
Like if you pretend you have all the answers, you're going to wind up steering somebody in a direction they don't need to go.
Yeah.
And I think too, if you want to fix things, some things you can't fix, and being able just to say, you know what, I don't know, but I'm here for you. That's
Hmm.
there's a beauty in that.
Yeah.
And even in the church too, it's the idea of you need people.
Hmm.
If you're doing nothing but giving of yourself, eventually you're going to wind up burning out. And being in that local church allows you to be fed and be nourished and to be refreshed,
Hmm.
to be encouraged, and we need that.
Yeah.
Desperately need that.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so now maybe like, if you put your pastor hat on, what do you as a pastor, knowing the schedules, the pressures, the time commitments, the stress, the anxiety that goes into performing at a high level as a coach and player, what do you as a pastor want to say to coaches? How do you minister to them in a way that's like, hey, I understand where you're at. I've been there. How do you seek to minister to coaches that are in your congregation and feed their souls, keep them focused on their purpose, their identity in Christ, all the kind of things that we've been talking about here from that pastoral perspective? Like, hey, just the love of the Lord for coaches and that he's, their side, he's with them in their battle and struggle and to, pick up on whatever you want to there.
I think the first thing and most practical is do not neglect your family. It's way too easy just to get lost in, especially football during football season where you're watching
Hmm.
film and it's a you know, 5 a.m. to 12, to midnight job. And next thing you know, well, yeah, the kids, they came to the game on Friday and I played catch with them on the field. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
They're going to enjoy that little memory, but that's not enough. So practically, that's the one. Don't neglect your family. Don't neglect yourself. Don't neglect as far as your own. You know what you need to be the best version of you. So make sure you're still having your quiet time. Make sure you're still getting your rest. Make sure you're not neglecting your family. And then, just like we talked about identity, do not make your identity into something that it should not be. Make sure your definition of success is one that honors Christ, and it's not just wins and losses. If you lose, if you go 0-32, but every single one of those kids understands just how special and unique and loved they are, well, that's a successful season in one way or the other. You might not have won a single game, but you've done something that will have, at least lifelong implications to it.
Yeah.
And then on top of it too, I would say the biggest thing is a lot of practical stuff that I can kind of bridge the gap as far as, don't get so lost in the weeds of coaching that you forget that there are bigger things that you are there for. Don't get so stuck doing small, tedious things that you forget that there's a much bigger picture in this whole process. And I think that will pay dividends both long term, but also even in your games. And then I would also encourage them to find like-minded human beings, probably ideally other coaches, and y'all go get coffee Friday mornings. Y'all just sit around and talk.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe in another district or something, or another sport, go find the wrestling coach and a tennis coach and sit down and just talk.
Yeah.
Because you need that. And stay humble too. Again, that's always another one too. Everybody knows that coach. It's just a little and I would say from another practical standpoint, just get off of social media.
Yeah.
Just do it, but don't, man. 2025 is a wild, or 26 now. It's a wild world. And so I'm so glad. So Facebook had just started when I was a freshman in college. I'm so glad that I didn't have to deal with all that nonsense.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Justin, thanks so much, man, for having this conversation with me, and helping coaches think through, these things, and just to be encouraged by your testimony, what the Lord's done in your life. Really appreciate it, brother. So thanks for the conversation today.
I appreciate you having me anytime.